And there's the singing of the followers in the background. But you can't take 15 minutes of that. Nor will you be able to take 15 minutes of me. Hi. Hi, how are you? It's a little blurry, but not bad. We're all set. And there's the cup in the mountain. Here is father on one of his riding horses and his dog. And here he is visiting the pig pens. They raised quite a few pigs because they not only fed all the followers in the Promised Land, a couple thousand people. They shipped these the bacon or the hams or whatever they made out of these particular animals to Newark, New Jersey, Harlem, in Manhattan. In 1935, he had not close, but he had a following, according to Time magazine, of 2 million people. So if he fed his different heavens in different places, Long Island, Manhattan, New Jersey, and up here in Ulster County, they could raise, as you can see, quite a few animals. I know a family over on the on Lucas Turnpike. They used to buy a couple pigs from father. Father would come to the house, and he'd have 2 pigs in a burlap sack, and they would buy 2 pigs to be raised on the farm for $10. Here he is. He's not. He's always impeccably dressed, and he's visiting the farm. This is his farm manager here. You can see some other animals in the background: ducks, geese, chickens, and dairy cows here. And one of the things I think you'll notice is that he seems to be very upbeat, very happy with what he's been able to accomplish, establishing a biracial community of white and black people in Ulster County, New York. This is the men's dormitory here. And they really have quite a few pigs on this farm. He also raised pigs in Stone Ridge, over off of Kaiserreich Road. And High Falls, they didn't raise any animals, but he had over 1,000 people in the High Falls area.
Wow.
So the food for those folks came from, this farm and other farms. I thought he was going to get arrested for animal abuse when he gets to the chickens, but he was taunting one of the chickens with another chicken. But see, that woman is not black. That's one of his followers, and she's white. About 70% of the people who were his immediate followers were black, and the other 30% were white. And he attracted a lot of rich people too, from the West Coast, Oregon, California. And he had heavens around the world, in Australia, New Zealand, Germany. He had a big following in Nuremberg, Germany, France. He was the most popular black leader in the 1930s, before the civil rights movements in the 60s. And he really didn't get involved in the 60s because he was getting old at that time. So anyone in the audience partake of buying any pigs from Father Divine? The only ones I know are the Neff brothers. And they used to see Father come with his limo. He had a big packet. And I don't know if you know Dave and Wilfred Neff, but they had a good nothing but good to talk about Father Divine. David would raise the pigs, and then of course when they butchered them, David would never eat any of the pigs that came, because they became his pets. Here he is with the chicken now, because he's famous for his chicken dinners. And they raised hundreds of chickens in almost all the farms, over in Atwood, up on Lower Salem Mill Road, Upper Salem Mill Road. Yeah, it looks like he's being a little abusive here, and then, come on, I'd say, put him down before I have to have Father arrested here for animal abuse. Yeah, come on, put him down. There, okay, he's okay. is with some younger chickens and some vegetables. When you get up to the end of Rocky Mountain Road, it's really not a place to start growing vegetables. I mean, it's almost a miracle that you could grow veggies up there. They grew hay and they had horses. And even the bears like to go through that cup in the mountain to get over onto the Peekamoose Valley.
You think that's corn he's throwing?
Yeah, that's most likely corn, and they did raise a lot of corn, field corn.
Oh, I was thinking those are really, really organic pigs.
Yeah, well, these are what we call free range today, I guess, you know, they're not cooped up like they are in these little cages, unfortunately, but, yeah, and some of the other little clippings from the movie, films, there's some little signs that are tacked up here and there, but you get a good look at them here at, the Vine Lodge, cause I only thought I would ever find a few, just those little clippings, but now we got this film. Now here's the farmhouse. It's painted red today. And I'm gonna, well, let's see where they go. Okay. I'll stop it for a second. The farmhouse had been owned by Monsignor Gray in the late 20s, early 30s. And he sold it to a Broadway writer and playwright and actor by the name of Barry Townley, who came from California. And Barry Townley used this farmhouse for a nightclub. There was no electricity here. They had oil lamps and everything. He bought it around 1935 or so. And he had a nightclub, and people would come from the city to kind of celebrate here. So when Father Divine bought it around 1935, because he only owned it a short time, Barry had died and his mother sold it to the followers. And when you do the research, I did the research for a book called The Promised Land, written by Carlton Mabey, and we located all the deeds to know who owned it and then who owned it before him and who it was sold to after. And but it's never in Father Divine's name. It's always in the names of other people who live there. But it's easy to spot because they have those nicknames like Sweet Penny and Holy Person, you know. And so it's easy to find. It's pretty easy to find the transfer of the deed. But they took all the liquor and booze that was in the nightclub and brought it out onto this little patio and broke it. And I know some people who were there helping to do that from Cahonkson, and they wanted to get a hold of that whiskey before those bottles were broken, but the women were taking them. And ironically, I'm not gonna mention any names, but the person that I know that was there as a young kid, he's passed away now, was there with his father, like in 1935, watching these women come out with the bottles of whiskey and smashing them on this patio. And he happened to be the head of the local Ku Klux Klan in the Cahonkson area. Yeah. But, you know, there weren't a lot of jobs during the Depression, and he was willing to compromise his beliefs and work for Father Divine. It seems unbelievable, but I'm only not mentioning the names because two of the grandchildren are policemen in Kingston. I don't want them to get mad at me. Okay, here we go. And here's some of his followers visiting the Promised Land. They're going down into the cornfield area, I think. Now, apparently, most of this corn would be field corn, and one of the ways you can tell is that it grows much higher than sweet corn. But not really. People don't really eat the field corn. It's a little mushy, I guess. I imagine if you had to, you could eat it, grind it up into flour and make tortillas or something. But this is, again, there's Mohonk, there's the Shunga Mountains in the background. It's an absolutely beautiful place when you stand in front of that farmhouse and look out toward Mohonk or toward the here's one of the little signs.
The Lord of the
Yeah, the vineyard of the Lord. Well, you know, his followers thought he was God. And then both the first Mother Divine, who was alive then, and the second Mother Divine would be the wife of God. He never really personally ever claimed to be God, but because of his good deeds and being able to become a substantial real estate purchaser in Ulster County, they looked upon him as being God. And the newspapers played it up, and the Hearst newspapers especially, trying to sell more newspapers than they did, would say anything, and they did. Well, and in the magazine here, in the accordion, the publication here, I think there's a direct connection between Father here at this farm, Divine Lodge, because within walking distance down the hill is Peg Leg Bates's lodge. Two black people who came here that have had quite a positive effect on the county, within a half mile of each other. I think that Father Divine's presence here, maybe Peg Leg came to visit this farm, or he heard in Manhattan that Father Divine had bought property way up here in Ulster County, which was not known for its sympathy toward black people, with the Ku Klux Klan being right in Cohonson area and other places in the area, that Peg Leg was advised that Father Divine didn't have any trouble buying properties here. Why don't you try it too? Either that, he came here and saw this and looked back over the valley and went down and bought the nearest farm that was for sale. So I've never been able to prove that exactly, except for a reference I had on an advisor, here's the Shungums, an advisor of Peg Leg telling him that. But no other records. There's about a 2-year gap between when Father Divine was here. There's a little spring that runs down through, there's a little pond in front of right in front of the house, the farmhouse. I was talking to one of the grandchildren of Monsignor Gray recently, and he said he rented this farmhouse in 1990. So there was a Gray back in there. Here's the orchards. There's a few old apple trees still on the property. Not very productive. These look a little weak at that time too, but here's one of his lawyers right here. And I think this gentleman right there, is a fellow from the West Coast who bought that mansion there in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia later in 1952. But Father left in 1942 and moved to Philadelphia. And unfortunately, when he went that way, the rest of the heavens here in Ulster County started to decline. The first property he bought was 1935 in New Paltz. The last property that he owned was 1985 in Kingston, New York. So Father Divine had a real estate presence and followers living here for 50 years, which comes as a surprise to most people, especially since he left in the early 40s and relocated his headquarters to Philadelphia and then later to Gladwin, Pennsylvania, and that's where they're located today. He looks pretty upbeat though. He looks happy with his accomplishments here. We think his real name is George Baker. Here we're back at, this is the men's quarters, the one that still exists there with some board and batten on it, but it was painted white on the end. And there's some other buildings like this one that no longer exist. And the farmhouse exists and the big barn. Now here, I don't know if he's going through a vegetable garden or a flower garden. Here's some vineyards here. This looks like grapes, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly what he's looking at here. Is this some, it looked like cotton field at first, but we're not sure exactly, and is this some kind of a vegetable? Like, this would be it would be August,
I think it's
probably
just
early
the
September.
green leaves.
Are they just
Wild
flowers? That maybe
flowers.
they decorated the
Yeah.
kitchen tables with?
It looks like he's getting his photograph taken in the flowers.
Yeah.
or something.
Queen Anne's
Queen Anne's
lace.
lace.
Queen Anne's Lace, maybe, yeah, not really sure. Here we are, okay, I'm gonna stop it right there. Maybe I'm not gonna, hey, come on, pause, okay. And there's where the nightclub was of Barry Townley, and this is where they brought out all the booze and broke it on this little stone patio, much to the dismay of the family that I knew from Cohongson. Here's the farmhouse. It looks a little rough, but again, they didn't have electricity here, even at that late date. Here's one of his big cars. And I got the singing coming back in, so you don't have to listen to me any longer. You'll have to listen to the followers.
Museum. Let's go check it out.
And that's it. Any questions? Whoops, I don't wanna.